Joining us to discuss this developing story is Dan Perry. He's an international affairs expert. He joins us live from Tel Aviv in Israel. Dan, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you. In terms of this blockade, how would this disrupt current negotiations? We, of course, saw those failed talks in Islamabad with an offer which Iran called maximalist. But before we get into the implications that it's going to have on the global economy, how might this derail ceasefire talks going forward?
Well, it could derail them by constituting an act of war. Remember that blockades are not inherently illegal in the same way that war is not illegal, but it's governed by certain conventions, traditions, and international regulations. A blockade must be declared, for example, and it must be proportionate in some way. Obviously, that's subjective. It could be seen as an act of war. So that obviously could derail the talks. On the other hand, the talks weren't going anywhere, as we saw, at least not in their initial phase, because the Iranians clearly feel they have leverage. They have leverage in their view because they've shown that even as they absorb a military thrashing as few that have existed, they are able to impose significant pain on the global economy via very inexpensive asymmetric means, essentially blockading the Strait of Hormuz. And firing a few cheap rockets and drones at Persian Gulf countries. So that was leading to a dead end. And in that sense, if the blockade, which is certainly an escalation, and does not appear to be like in good faith or any such thing, persuades the Iranians that maybe they don't have the leverage they thought they had, then it could actually bring about a more felicitous conclusion to the negotiations. I don't think the Americans can possibly end these negotiations with the war over and the Iranians neither handing over their nuclear material nor agreeing to forswear a nuclear weapon and turning the Strait of Hormuz into what's been called an Ayatollah booth. That's simply not going to happen. That would be seen as such humiliation. It doesn't make sense in geopolitics, and if you look at history, that's not how things tend to happen. So it's interesting to note that in the negotiation, the Americans really did present what I have called on your show a month ago surrender terms. In other words, it required Iran to understand that the war puts it in a different place where they have to stop all the misbehavior from a Western perspective, and that includes ceasing to fund proxy militias around the region. Now, to Iran, this is maximalist craziness. To the world, this is addressing the problems that caused the war to break out. I'm not even talking about Iran's massacre of tens of thousands of protesters and horrific repression of its own people.
Okay.
So who knows? Blockade could end up actually helping, not hurting.
Okay, Dan, stay with us. We have a breaking development where Donald Trump has issued a statement and threatened Iran on the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. He's warned that if any Iranian ships come anywhere close to the US blockade, they will be immediately eliminated. His post further reads, the US will use the same system of kill that the US used against the drug dealers on boats at sea, referencing the Caribbean strikes in earlier this year. It is quick and brutal, he says. P.S., he adds, 98.2% of drugs coming into the US by ocean or sea have stopped. A statement there coming from Donald Trump. Dan, I want to get your just reaction on that. Of course, it can't be independently verified, that last statement that Donald Trump made. But the strategy here is going to be much under question when it comes to Donald Trump's hardline attitude on any Iranian ships that come anywhere near close to the blockade. They will be blown up with the individuals killed on board. Does this change anything?
No. I mean, it just means that Trump is going to enforce the blockade in the Trumpiest of ways, essentially. He's not concerned about this being viewed as extrajudicial killings. He wasn't concerned about that in the case of Venezuela. He's certainly not going to care in the case of Iran, with which with which the U.S. is in a state of war, even if that war is paused. So this just means that he's going to enforce the blockade, and it's a way of declaring in a spectacular manner that the blockade has begun.
I want to welcome my other guest. David K. Johnston also joins us. He is a professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology. He joins us live from New York. David, thank you very much. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. This deadline has now officially ended, followed by a very strong statement coming from the US president, warning that any Iranian ships who attempt to pass their fate will mirror that of those alleged drug traffickers who were in the Caribbean. Tell us how you think that this situation might be read by Tehran.
Well, Thomas, first, if I may, it was a pleasure to hear Dan Perry's analysis, which I thought was nuanced and very well informed. Donald, just makes stuff up, and 98.2% of drugs coming into the country have ceased is just another one of his sort of made up comments. What are we seeing happen with America's allies? From Australia to the EU, we're seeing the same refrain. That's your war, pal. We don't want anything to do with it. You figure out how to get yourself out of the corner you painted yourself into, but we're not coming to help you, with the possible exception of Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, indicating he might make minesweepers available in the Strait of Hormuz.
Dan, I want to get your input on this as well. International participation in that the French and the British are leading to open the strait. Do you think there's any weight there, especially things seem to be escalating rather than de-escalating now?
It has symbolic weight. I'm sure they have some minesweepers that can be helpful, but it doesn't change the big picture, where other than this limited means that they may be willing to deploy, they're not joining what David called Donald's war. NATO in general isn't, the Europeans aren't, no one is. And it puts everyone in an awkward position because very few of them want to be seen as supporting the regime in Iran in any way, nor would they want to collaborate in any way with Iran's original notion of itself blockading the strait and charging a toll. On the other hand, they can't get over three things. One, that Trump has been insulting and demeaning and belittling them for a year and a half and doesn't value alliances and prefers Putin and Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un to them. The second is that they weren't consulted in any way about this war with Iran. And the third is that they deem it to be not fully thought out. And I think that last part is both true, given how we've seen it go, and extremely relevant, because if it had been different, if they had seen, or if it were possible to contemplate a really great way out of this where the regime falls or is compelled to cease misbehaving, or in any other way the world economy isn't damaged, they might forgive the other two things. But it's that one thing that is damning, and it comes from what David rightly called President Trump's seeming ignorance and impulsiveness, essentially.
There are, of course, further accusations that that Lebanese front is severely disrupting those negotiations with Iran. What are your thoughts?
I don't think that's what really is disrupting the negotiation. It's rather the basic loggerheads that the two sides find themselves at, where each thinks they have or should have leverage. In the case of Lebanon also, although I generally would not disagree with anyone being cynical about Netanyahu, it's not about Israel enlarging its borders. Israel has no particular claim on Lebanon as such. But they will take over southern Lebanon if they think that's the way to create a buffer zone with Hezbollah. Basically, Israel's had it with Hezbollah in the same way that any country would have had it with Hezbollah on its borders attacking it. I'm not cynical about that at all. And Israel intends to weaken Hezbollah as much as they can get away with, so that the government of Lebanon, which itself has said they want to disarm Hezbollah, finally is able to do it, because the power balance within Lebanon between the government and this Iran-backed militia has changed. That's basically the story there.
Dan Perry, thank you so much for joining us.